Why do the smartest moves in professional hockey happen in complete silence, away from the cameras and headlines, until suddenly they don't? The Vancouver Canucks are conducting what might be the NHL's most understated yet crucial player hunt right now, and their methodical approach to finding a middle six center could either rescue their season or expose the organization's inability to close deals when it matters most. While other teams grab headlines with flashy signings and blockbuster trades, Vancouver has been operating in the shadows, quietly probing the market for that elusive piece that could transform their entire offensive structure. This isn't desperation, it's calculated patience from a franchise that learned harsh lessons about making panic moves. But with training camp approaching faster than a Zdeno Chara slap shot, their window for surgical precision is rapidly closing. According to Thomas Drance of The Athletic, the Canucks remain actively committed to adding a middle six center before the season begins. This persistent pursuit reveals something fascinating about Vancouver's current state. They're confident enough in their core to be selective, yet realistic enough to acknowledge they need reinforcement to compete with the Western Conference elite. The Canucks' cooling interest in free agent Jack Roslovic tells a story that goes deeper than simple roster construction. When an organization walks away from readily available talent, it signals either supreme confidence in their evaluation process or a strategic vision that extends beyond immediate fixes. Vancouver's assessment that Roslovic doesn't represent a long-term solution demonstrates organizational maturity that wasn't always present in previous regimes. Rather than settling for available mediocrity, they're holding out for players who fit their timeline and system requirements. This disciplined approach suggests lessons learned from past mistakes where short-term thinking created long-term problems. The rejection of remaining free agents as inadequate options further reinforces this strategic patience. In a league where desperation often drives poor decisions, Vancouver's willingness to continue searching rather than settling reflects organizational confidence in their ability to identify and acquire the right fit through alternative channels. Their shift toward trade scenarios rather than free agency also indicates recognition that the best available centers are already under contract elsewhere. This reality necessitates more complex negotiations and higher acquisition costs, but it also provides access to proven talent that wouldn't otherwise be available. Vancouver's reported pursuit of Minnesota Wild forward Marco Rossi, including an offer of the 15th overall draft pick, reveals both ambition and miscalculation. This aggressive approach demonstrates their willingness to invest significant assets in addressing their center depth, but Minnesota's rejection and subsequent signing of Rossi to a bridge deal exposed the limits of Vancouver's leverage. The Rossi situation illustrates the challenge facing Vancouver. Identifying targets is easier than acquiring them. When teams recognize valuable assets on their roster, they're naturally reluctant to trade them unless overwhelmed by offers. Vancouver's unsuccessful pursuit suggests they may need to recalibrate their expectations about what it will cost to acquire impact talent. Minnesota's decision to retain Rossi rather than accept Vancouver's offer also speaks to the current market dynamics. Teams are increasingly reluctant to trade young, developing centers unless forced by salary cap constraints or organizational philosophy shifts. This reality makes Vancouver's remaining options more limited and potentially more expensive. The failed Rossi pursuit serves as a preview of challenges ahead. If Vancouver couldn't convince Minnesota to part with an unestablished young center, acquiring proven talent like Jesperi Kotkaniemi or Pavel Zacha will require even more compelling offers. Jesperi Kotkaniemi represents the classic high-risk, high-reward trade target that could define Vancouver's season. Selected third overall in 2018, his career trajectory embodies both immense potential and frustrating inconsistency. At just 25 years old, he remains young enough to experience a breakout while offering enough track record to suggest realistic production expectations. Kotkaniemi's statistical profile reveals intriguing patterns that could appeal to Vancouver's analytics-focused approach. His consistent double-digit goal production in seasons with adequate playing time suggests baseline competency, while his peak performance of 18 goals and 43 points in 82 games demonstrates untapped ceiling potential. The financial aspect makes Kotkaniemi particularly attractive for Vancouver's salary cap situation. His $4.82 million cap hit over 5 years provides cost certainty while remaining affordable enough to preserve flexibility for future roster moves. This combination of reasonable cost and extended term control addresses both immediate needs and long-term planning. However, Kotkaniemi's availability likely stems from Carolina's recognition that he hasn't fulfilled expectations since his controversial offer sheet signing. Vancouver would essentially be betting that their system, coaching, and player development can unlock potential that hasn't materialized elsewhere. This gamble could prove brilliant or disastrous, depending on execution. Pavel Zacha presents a markedly different proposition from Kotkaniemi, offering proven production and versatility at presumably higher acquisition costs. His 9-year NHL career includes multiple flirtations with 60-point seasons and demonstrates the kind of established competency that Vancouver desperately needs. Zacha's experience centering Boston's top line provides exactly the resume Vancouver seeks for their middle six role. His ability to handle significant responsibilities while producing consistently makes him the safer, more predictable option compared to Kotkaniemi's boom or bust potential. The age factor works both for and against Zacha as a target. At 28, he's entering his prime years and should provide immediate impact, but he also represents a shorter-term solution than the younger Kotkaniemi. Vancouver must weigh immediate contribution against long-term value when evaluating these alternatives. Boston's apparent willingness to consider trades as they pivot toward rebuilding creates opportunity for Vancouver, but it also means competing against other contenders who recognize Zacha's value. The Bruins will likely demand significant return for a player who could contribute to multiple franchises immediately. With training camp approaching, Vancouver faces mounting pressure to complete their center search before being forced to rely on internal options that may not be ready for significant roles. Philip Chittle and Adder Rady represent promising prospects, but betting organizational success on unproven players carries substantial risk. The timing element adds complexity to negotiations, as other teams recognize Vancouver's urgency and may adjust their asking prices accordingly. Every passing day potentially increases acquisition costs while decreasing available alternatives. Vancouver's patient approach has preserved their asset base while allowing thorough evaluation of options, but patience becomes problematic if it prevents necessary improvements. The organization must balance strategic discipline with practical urgency as competitive pressures mount. The Canucks situation perfectly illustrates modern NHL roster construction challenges. Identifying needs is straightforward, but addressing them requires navigating salary caps, asset management, and competitive markets where multiple teams pursue similar solutions. Vancouver's center search extends beyond simple roster filling. It represents a crucial test of their current management group's ability to execute strategic vision. After years of rebuilding and asset accumulation, their capacity to convert resources into competitive improvement faces evaluation. Success in acquiring the right center could catalyze broader team improvement, providing the depth and flexibility needed for playoff contention. Failure could expose organizational limitations and potentially waste another season of prime years from their core players. The methodical approach demonstrates organizational maturity, but results matter more than process in professional sports. Vancouver's careful evaluation and patient pursuit mean nothing without successful execution when opportunities arise. As training camps approach and roster construction deadlines loom, Vancouver's center search enters its most critical phase. The combination of organizational needs, available targets, and competitive pressures creates a perfect storm that should produce resolution soon. Whether that resolution involves acquiring Kotkaniemi, Zacha, or an unexpected alternative will reveal much about Vancouver's true ambitions and capabilities. Their systematic approach has positioned them well, but positioning means nothing without execution. The Canucks have done their homework, identified their targets, and preserved their assets. Now comes the hardest part, convincing other organizations to make the deals that could transform Vancouver's competitive outlook. What do you think Vancouver should prioritize, the high-ceiling gamble of Kotkaniemi or the proven reliability of Zacha? And do you believe their patient approach will pay off, or are they overthinking themselves out of necessary upgrades? Share your predictions below, and hit that like button if you think Vancouver's quiet hunt is about to make some serious noise in the trade market.